Hello and welcome back to OCD Coded. My name's Erin Brown, licensed marriage and family therapist and mental health counselor. I have OCD myself, and my goal with this is to help you learn how to turn your OCD into a superpower. Part of how I'm doing that is by practicing overcoming my fears by doing these videos. I record them and post them just as is. And that's part of it is overcoming that perfectionism. And it led me to today's theme about transcending duality and talking about that and how hard that is for OCD, and how it's almost become my personal mission and obsession about transcending duality and how to like what is duality, how duality is just two sides of the same coin, but in different ways, that it's not good or bad. They're just differences, like opposites, but not even opposites. It's the tension between opposites and overcoming that that's so important for life. And Carl Jung talked about this a lot. And I think it was him, one of the quotes is like, all of life is the tension of dangling between two opposites. And I think that that's so true. It's like, to be able to see two opposites, even two choices, which is really hard for OCD, but to be able to look at two choices and then to try to see the third thing, like something between the two choices that isn't just choosing one or the other, but is a third thing that comes out of that. And I think of that sometimes as like the union of opposites creates this third thing that is greater than the sum of its parts. It's, that third thing is greater than either of the two opposites individually. And so that can be applied to so many things. And I do apply that to my decision making, like almost like graphing it out. I tend to do a lot of visuals in my mind because that helps me to make it tangible so that I can actually work with it, whether it's making my thoughts into visuals or my feelings, or any of those things is so. And one of the ways I do that is like how I was saying with the choices, that I kind of put one choice on one hand and another choice on another hand, and I try to imagine what is in the middle between these two. What if I was drawing, or if it's even four choices, can I put them on like two choices this way and two choices this way and look for this thing that is in the middle of those four choices, and how to kind of start to map that or navigate that in my own mind, and how much that helps me with my OCD, because OCD really wants a known. And so, the opposite of that, of course, being unknown. And OCD really struggles with that. It wants a known. It cannot accept the unknown. So it'll do compulsively whatever it needs to make an unknown known. And so when we think of transcending duality, it's about how do I transcend the unknown, that I don't have to have a known, but also it's not all unknown. And that is kind of what I'm looking for with or what I feel like my OCD is always searching for constantly is, um, well, my OCD wants the known, but then there's this other part of me, like more of like my core, that wants to figure out what is between the known and the unknown. That I also think it's important, for me, never to believe that I know everything, that I always want to leave room and open-mindedness, that there's going to be things I don't know. I'm going to have blind spots I can't see, and that I can't ever know all of those blind spots. And I can't always know all the answers, and I don't think that's the reason. I don't think we're supposed to know all the answers, but that doesn't mean we can't stop questioning or being curious and looking for answers and getting closer and closer to those answers, even if we may never come to a full understanding, as what I believe is like on this earth, which is, of course, a whole obsession with OCD, which is, that the fear of death is so much about what the fear of the unknown is, and that death is the ultimate unknown. And so when we get into, can I accept that, when it comes down to it, nobody knows what happens after we die, but that also nobody knows for sure almost anything. And that can I get comfortable in that unknown? But that doesn't mean I know nothing. And that's again where these opposites, I can't know everything, but it doesn't mean I don't know anything. And so, how do I sit more comfortably in that space between, where I'm sitting in the known, like as much known as I can at this point, but leaving space open to being okay if I'm presented with facts that challenge my known that I have at this point, and how I can start to look at that with openness and honesty and willingness, and how I can be willing. And I think that again goes so hard with OCD, that to be able to admit that I'm going to have blind spots and that I'm not going to know what those all are. And that I believe part of the reason for blind spots are that relationships are to help us see our blind spots. And that's why relationships can be so difficult and why we can get so annoyed with other people sometimes. But that's kind of the whole point, is that others are our mirrors. They help us see our shadow side, they help us see our blind spots, and that to be open. But my goal is to stay open to how I can use it all as a lesson. I can use it all to get closer to those knowns of knowing myself, of trusting the universe or trusting others, and be able to do that. And with transcending duality, I think it's really hard, especially now when people seem to be very divided, or, and to also feel like they have to really hold on to their beliefs. Like to admit that I was wrong about my beliefs or to change my beliefs means that I'm somehow a bad person or wishy-washy or something like that. And being able to be more comfortable in that it has to be okay to change our minds, and it has to be okay to dangle in that tension between opposites. And sometimes I might be more toward this side of the spectrum, or sometimes I may be toward this side of the spectrum, no matter what of those two sides of the spectrum are. And can it be okay? Can I be comfortable enough in myself and my core that I can have beliefs without my core or my foundation of my being dependent on these beliefs, that I can change my beliefs without that being, I'm changing my core, and can I continue to transform those beliefs? But again, I think that's what's so hard with OCD is transformation is really scary because it's unknown. We don't really know what's on the opposite side of that transition or transformation, and that's the purpose of it. But it's so scary. And I like thinking about the butterfly and caterpillar analogy. I think about it often, but just like the caterpillar gets this instinct to go climb on this leaf and build a cocoon, and it turns into goo while it's in that cocoon before it comes out. And how scary that must be for the caterpillar, but the caterpillar just gets this instinct and follows it. And it doesn't know what's going to be on the other side of that. It doesn't know that it's going to be a butterfly, but it gets to the point where, the tension or the discomfort too of being a caterpillar becomes too much. And so it must be this transformation. And I think that ego death as a metaphor, also is kind of is part of this, is that I have to be willing to go through many ego deaths within my life and not build my foundation of who I am based on my ego. And that's not just pride, but just like who I think I am as a person. And that doesn't mean I don't know who I am as a person, but it means that that has to be able to evolve, and that I have to, my goal, I'm trying to stop saying have tos and shoulds. Um, but that my goal or my mission is what I feel like I want to continue to come back to and begin again at, is to transform myself and to overcome these dualities, or to sit in this tension and be able to be open to transforming along the way, and whatever that means, and being open to the unknown, and open to that I'm going to be terrified the whole time while I do that. But I'm going to keep doing it anyway. And that's part of it. I can rest sometimes, like I don't think any flower blooms all year, as they say, or is like that sense of it doesn't always have to be growth and change. There are times for rest, but I know for me personally, I spend a lot of time resting, or not even just resting, but like sitting in my comfort zone in those ways. And I'm really trying to challenge myself in this phase of my life to really push myself outside my comfort zone and do the things that scare me, and sit in the tension of opposites, and not feel like I have to choose one or choose an identity or choose all this kind of stuff about like, this is how things have to be, but be more open and willing, and just being really honest with myself and others. So I encourage you to do the same. And I hope that you got something out of that. And if not, let me know too. And let me know what you want to hear more about, or how you're overcoming your own dualities. I'd love to hear more. Until next time.